So again, thanks for everyone for being here, and it's good to see a great number. And thank you for Gabriel for coming online to share his experience. So Gabriel's the educational designer for Raspberry Shake, and I'm sure he'll talk a little bit more about what he does. And just thank you again for being with us today. So you can take it away, Gabriel. Thank you.
Oh, Mario, thank you so much. I'm really thankful for being here, definitely, and I want to thank you guys again for the opportunity. And I'm so excited to share about Raspberry Shake seismographs, and especially engaging with schools and communities. Here on my first screen, there's a few images. One on the left, that is our worldwide citizen science powered Raspberry Shake seismic network, and it's one of the most amazing things that has come out of this Raspberry Shake project, which of course I'll explain more in a bit, but there are now almost 1,300 stations live online all the time that are powered by enthusiasts, by educators, and that's something that's really special. On the other photo there is a photo that I stole from recent one of your Crisis Lab EEW posts, where that's one of the recent Raspberry Shakes that is going to one of your schools. So it was just really awesome to see that. So I'll introduce myself. I'm Gabriel Low. I'm coming to you from Medellin, Colombia. So it's actually still Monday for me. And I kind of first and foremost am a student. I'm only 19 years old, if you can believe that. And I study at University of Alaska Fairbanks virtually because I'm here, and my kind of main occupations are I am the educational designer for Raspberry Shake, as well as being the online curriculum director for the T3 Alliance program. And T3 Alliance, probably, I'll talk to you a little bit more about that in a second, but it's another really cool STEM education project that I work with. Now, of course, I'm a passionate STEM educator. And just so I could be clear to everyone, I am not a seismologist, nor a geophysicist, nor I'm not really a scientist yet. I mean, I like to think I am, but definitely not quite there yet. So, that said, any questions you have about technical specs of the Raspberry Shake and those kind of things, feel free to ask, but I may not be able to answer them. And I want to give you a little bit more of a background in my experience in STEM engagement and outreach. And where that really comes from is from that program I mentioned earlier, which is the T3 Alliance, Teaching Through Technology Alliance. And what T3 Alliance is it actually started out as a National Science Foundation grant from the United States government to a whole bunch of TRIO Upward Bound programs. And TRIO Upward Bound programs are federally funded programs to help usually first generation underserved high school students go towards college careers. And what T3 Alliance was, it was an effort to, it was a grant, it was an idea, right, that became reality to provide students with provide educators rather with an adaptable curriculum for their students to get into STEM career fields. And the three kind of pillars to the T3 Alliance, and these are so integral in now my thought process, because I was introduced to this at a young age, like 15 years old, and kind of grow up with it. So I really feel a connection to it. Now, the three pillars are, as you see there, first is the growth mindset. Now, the growth mindset, right, is, I mean, all of us, probably most of us educators, even everyone. And I saw that Marianne even had a little quote there that says, I can grow, I can change, I'm not stuck, right? And that's what basically growth mindset is. And unfortunately, it afflicts a lot of students, especially underserved students and Indigenous students, is the idea that this is really hard, I can't do math, and that stuff. So our first big effort with working with students, especially with STEM, is to help them get that growth mindset. And there are lots of activities that I can share with you later. But the second kind of pillar, of course, is tech skills. And that those tech skills can be anything from using maybe seismographs, right, Raspberry Shakes, to other Raspberry Pi, small programmable boards, computers that you can do lots of coding with, to maybe drones, 3D printing, all sorts of things. And the glue that really holds this philosophy together, this curriculum philosophy that can really help students, is community engagement. And what does that mean? That means providing students with opportunities to do projects using their tech skills, using what they've learned with STEM, right, to have a really positive impact in their community. And that impact could be a variety of things. I've worked with students who have gone and kind of addressed disasters that maybe happened to their community. For example, I worked with a group of students in Hawaii that set up Raspberry Pi powered air quality monitors right after the volcano all of a sudden started spewing out this toxic SO2 smoke. And a lot of people were unsure to go home. T3 Alliance students used skills that they learned with programming Raspberry Pis, with doing things, were able to kind of set up that solution to a community problem. And what that does for students is it gives them that, oh, I just did something really important for my community with these cool tech skills I learned. I can totally be an engineer. And boom, that's where they go. And it's giving them that glue that can get them forward. And this philosophy, this kind of this thinking process for curriculum is also what is just Raspberry Shake fits so well into. So my story in this is I started with the T3 Alliance. And my father was a big part of the development, so I kind of was learning alongside him as I was growing up, right? I was a 14, 15, 16-year-old learning about this process. And I actually started to co-teach some of the T3 Alliance. And at a training with the T3 Alliance, Raspberry Shake, who I work for now, I work for both of them, but Raspberry Shake was invited to one of these trainings, and I was a presenter there, and they ended up inviting me, saying, hey, we want somebody who can come onto our team and build a curriculum or a education program, right? A resource for teachers when they want to start using the Raspberry Shake, because Raspberry Shake really is such a great educational tool. And I know I haven't really explained what the Raspberry Shake is. I'm going there, but I just wanted to get that kind of base for all of you as we go forward. So what is Raspberry Shake? So this is what I just put here. About 6 years ago, a couple of seismology nerds in Panama asked the question, what if seismographs could be affordable and accessible to educators and enthusiasts? And what resulted from that question is what Raspberry Shake is now. So now Raspberry Shake started as a Kickstarter startup. Maybe some of you who are on this call even were aware of them, and maybe even were early adopters. But Raspberry Shake is just an incredible success story of a startup, which they had a crazy idea. Let's make seismographs accessible to everyone, and they used Raspberry Pi devices combined with geophones and a whole bunch of programming to kind of create this whole entire ecosystem that everyone can use. And that ecosystem is exemplified by this photo here. You can see that there's the actual device, right? And it says seismographs and infrasound monitors. That's because we now have a Raspberry Boom as well, which is another thing that we can talk about. But you can see that there's the device, and there's also a whole bunch of apps to go along with it. So it's not just when you purchase a Raspberry Shake, when you have a Raspberry Shake, it's not just a seismograph. It's this whole ecosystem of software and of web apps and of all these resources you can use. And again, Raspberry Shakes are low cost, and I'll get there's some more slides that talk more about them. They're low cost, plug and play seismographs that you can have at your home, in your school, and that aren't too shabby when it comes to performance either. They're actually quite a few studies that say Raspberry Shakes are nearly as good as broadband seismographs. So that's who Raspberry Shake is. Now, what is Raspberry Shake? And I just kind of explained that, but for all of you, seismologists and people who actually know what a lot of these numbers mean, you can appreciate this a little bit. So, as I said, what is Raspberry Shake? This is a Raspberry Shake. I have one right in front of me. Again, they're Raspberry Pi powered seismographs with the geophone, and that all works. So plug and play, IoT connected. And that's what's so important is, no, it doesn't have to be connected. They can definitely work without, but the internet, right? The internet is kind of what powers the Raspberry Shake ecosystem and what makes this huge citizen science community possible. Now, in terms of compatibility, all this stuff, they are SeisComp 3 compatible with seed links and mini seed, flat frequency response from 2 seconds to 40 hertz, right? And they are earthquake early warning compatible. We haven't had any earthquake early warning networks use Raspberry Shakes yet, but we are totally confident. We're just anxious for when somebody starts to, because we have fast a fast packet time and all sorts of those. So it's exciting. Like, when's it going to happen? Because we're excited to watch it work. And of course, there's NGP timing with GPS and all that sort of fun things. Now, how does it work? Right, and this is a similar slide that I show to most of my high school classes when I'm talking. So I'll buzz through it pretty quick. But of course, we have our geophone, right? And usually there's one. We actually do have a RS 3D version that has 3 geophones for each axis. But there's the geophone, and geophone has a little magnet inside with an inertial mass, and that mass stays still as the Earth moves, and it can really feel the vibrations. And those analog signals go to a digitizer. This is kind of the magic sauce of the Raspberry Shake, and you seismologists know that the digitizer is what can oftentimes be really tricky when it comes to seismographs. So we have our digitizer then sits on top of the Raspberry Pi, which is the computer that runs all of the software that then connects it to the Raspberry Shake network. Now, local connectivity, right? That you actually interact with your Raspberry Shake, not with a screen, right? It's a headless device is what they're called. So there's no screen directly connected, although you can, but once you connect to the same network as it, you can actually remote in through a local DNS and connect your Shake to a browser, and then do all the configuration. And once you configure it to connect to Raspberry Shake citizen science network servers, that's where you can connect to the world's largest citizen science powered seismic network, which is our ShakeNet. It's our this is the station view, and we actually are also detecting in real time earthquakes, and have had in some cases, depending on where, right? But in some places, for example, like Southern California, where there is a really high concentration of Raspberry Shakes, sometimes our automated system has tweeted out an earthquake alert before the USGS and other kind of major networks. So of course the USGS is a lot more they have to really make sure that they get their earthquakes right. But we were pretty proud of that when that happened. And that's powered by users, right? That's powered by shakers, by educators all around. And like I said, we are really making waves in the seismology world. Now, before 2016, right, it was not easy to get a personal seismograph, right? There were lots of tinkerers and maybe super nerds who built their own or kind of used some of the educational AS1, maybe those kind of devices. But to get an actual seismograph was not so accessible. And since then we've just expanded exponentially, and now you can just see by this map it is awesome. And this is just scratching the surface. We've been able to provide a whole bunch of resources and web apps in the back as well. Excuse me. So now let's talk about what my specialty, what I always get super excited about, and that is Raspberry Shake in STEM education. So there's a few points that are really awesome. First of all, we have multiple worldwide, and maybe I worded that wrong. We have multiple Raspberry Shake seismographs in schools networks that are all around the world, right? So the seismographs in schools networks aren't there's not one network that's worldwide. It's more like there's a few different networks all around the world. But I'll talk a little more about that later. But we have seismographs and schools networks that are Raspberry Pi powered in Nepal, in Oklahoma. There's a small one starting in Hawaii, in Puerto Rico. So it's really a really awesome thing to see that. And maybe soon in New Zealand. So that could be really exciting. More than 1,000 devices sent to educators worldwide. Now, this is a pretty incredible number, right? That so many devices have been sent to educators. And probably our biggest market so far has been enthusiasts, have been hobbyists who just think it's awesome to have a seismograph in your house, which it is. But definitely educators are close second, using these in the classroom, right? Whether it be elementary school or college level, right? It's applicable everywhere. And now, recently, just as of last year, we have a dedicated educational website at edu.raspberryshake.org. That's the screenshot you see on the right side there. And that's kind of my contribution when I came in and said, okay, we're going to give resources to educators. And what edu.raspberryshake.org is it's a resource, for curriculum, how to get started, even a purchase guide for what as an educator you might be looking for. And so it's a really exciting resource that we were able to provide for that. Now, I'm going to get into some stories, right? And a few of these stories have to do with Raspberry Shakes and how they have been used in education, especially to address real problems, or have impacts. And the first one, which is a pretty incredible story, I think you'll see, is students responding to the 2020 Puerto Rico earthquakes, right? That should be earthquakes because, as many of you know, it was just a devastating earthquake storm that happened right at the end of 2019. I think it was the 26th or 27th of December when it started, but it was, crazy, just nonstop shaking. And I had been to Puerto Rico a few times before then. They have a pretty strong T3 Alliance community, quite a few programs. And I'd been there giving a Raspberry Shake training a little while earlier. So I immediately contacted them and said, hey, is everyone okay? Is there anything we can do to help? And all of a sudden, a few days later, I was on a plane flying to Puerto Rico. I think it was the 7th or 8th of January. I mean, really soon after that, I flew down there with the intention to work with students to set up some sort of way to address what was going on to help the community with Raspberry Shakes. So once I got there, the first thing that we did was, before even looking at all of the Raspberry Shakes and all these things, we took out some Raspberry Pis and started learning what is a computer, what is this kind of Raspberry Pi, Raspberry Shake, all these raspberries, right? What's going on here? And because that's really what the base, especially in T3 Alliance, but even in just any STEM education in general, is in order to do impactful work, you have to have base skills. So we worked on basic program flows, inputs and outputs, all these kinds of things before we started to set up the Raspberry Shakes. And here I am. This is a classroom in Barranquitas, Puerto Rico, which is in the middle of the island. They were maybe 60 or 70 kilometers, away from the a lot of the epicenter. So they weren't super hard hit, but they had lost a few roads access because of landslides and things. So it was definitely, and you could feel it. It was pretty incredible. And this is one of this next slide is one of the most exciting moments. Well, yeah, close to that I've had in my teaching career, right? Trying to teach about what are P waves, what are S waves, how do these work? And all of a sudden, it literally mid P wave explanation, all of a sudden, and you heard it before it came. Oh my gosh, it was an earthquake, and we had the live earthquake Raspberry Shake monitor up on the screen, and that right there, this it's not the best photo, but you can see the left side. That was what came across the screen, and some of the kids started screaming, ran outside. It was a small, maybe a 3.7. It wasn't too shaky, but it was yeah, it was surreal. And the crazy thing was that this was happening maybe every 3 hours, 4 hours, right? And it continued to happen as I was there, but that was definitely one of the highlights of that trip. But we learned all about earthquakes and seismographs, right? As on the right, so you can see a girl, she's putting together a DIY, well, sort of DIY Raspberry Shake. It's a kit where it doesn't come, as you say, in the turnkey package with everything all packaged up, but that was you put digitizer on the Pi and put the SD card with the operating system in, and that's a T3 Alliance product. So they're pretty cool. If anyone wants to learn about those, they can ask later. But we set those up and eventually ended up installing the Shake in an underground vault. Now, this wasn't that much of a vault for those of you who actually, have set up and seen vaults before. It was just a hole in the ground with some cement on the bottom, and we put, some dirt on top. But it seemed professional and all cool like that. So we ended up installing a Raspberry Shake. I think it was a 40 actually, underneath the ground here in Barranquitas. And we also set up let me just go to the next slide. I think we set up this, monitoring system, right? And what the Raspberry Shake can do, it not only connects to the Raspberry Shake servers and the FDSN servers, but it also can shoot UDP data. Shoot UDP data, to another device on the network. It can shoot anywhere, but especially on the network. So we had another Raspberry Pi set up to receive that data and have earthquake alarms. And what those earthquake alarms did is they played a really funny reggaeton song that the students chose that was called "Shaky, Shaky, 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 Shaky." Called that was pretty funny. But that was what they chose. So whenever an earthquake happened, or someone banged their hand really hard next to the seismograph, it was a filter kind of thing, right? But there would be a reggaeton song playing, telling them about the event that was going on. But we set that up with an always on display as well, right? So they could always see what's going on. And if someone was next to that display and it started shaking, they can be, oh my gosh, that's an earthquake. That's pretty cool. And that was really special for the students. And we were able to set up a total of, I think, 3 or 4 of those in Puerto Rico. And here's another. This one on the right side is a photo of the RSUDP display. And I'll show you guys my live RSUDP display in a second, which is kind of cool. I have it right here. But that was a giant earthquake. That these were only the aftershocks. Imagine that. The actual earthquake was, you can see the micrometers, per second. That's the movement up there. It was like 1.5 millimeters or something. The height at the height of the movement. It was insane. So, right. The coolest thing that we set up at the end with the students in Puerto Rico was an API Twitter page which you can do through various Raspberry Shake software programs, is set up an automatic, bot Twitter page that would send out screenshots. Oh, whoops, sorry about that. It would send out screenshots of the events recorded by the shakes, right? On the shake screen, you can call it. It waited 5 seconds after it felt the event, took a screenshot, and uploaded it to Twitter. So it was pretty amazing to see, fly back to Colombia and get a Twitter notification and open it up and see that there was just an earthquake that was reported, in 10 seconds, right? Because the reality is it takes 5 seconds to take the screenshot and then 10 seconds to upload to Twitter. And then you can see that is one of the fastest earthquake alerts that you have. It didn't tell any type of magnitude at all, of course, but it could tell you how big the displacement was. And you could tell if it was up towards, the high hundreds micrometers, that was a pretty big shake. Unfortunately, and some of you may be looking on Twitter, how do I find Shake Schools Puerto Rico? Twitter decided to suspend us because there was too many earthquakes in Puerto Rico, if you can imagine that. We probably should have put the filter, higher, because after it did like hundreds of tweets in a few weeks, they decided, or probably in a few days, they decided that they were going to suspend us, and we're still trying to get it back, but they don't seem that happy about it, or Twitter just doesn't care. But that was a pretty amazing, what can be done, and we're definitely looking for more opportunities to have impacts like that. Hopefully not with the same precedents, right? We don't want everyone to have these crazy earthquakes, but this is a really incredible project that I just wanted to share. And they have now, I think, 15 or 20 upward bound programs, like school programs that have Raspberry Shake set up and are being monitored, and more are on the way. So that was one cool share of that. And there's another really awesome seismology in schools program that's all Raspberry Shake based, which is in Nepal. This was a grant that was through a university in Switzerland, that one of the PhD candidates was his home is Nepal, and he put together a proposal and followed through with a whole project to set up, I think, close to 30 Raspberry Shakes in Nepalese schools, and go and give training, earthquake trainings and drills, and really the ultimate goal is to help with community awareness, right? Having accessible earthquake data, somewhere you can go and look, is really helpful for the community. And this has been a super successful. We still have, I think, close to 15 shakes still online, which is pretty impressive. And another one that's a really, really incredible program is the Oklahoma Geological Survey Raspberry Shake Blossom program. Blossom, I love this acronym. I gotta always think about it when I say it. Bridging local opportunities for seismic signal monitoring. There we go, first time. And this program, of course, was happened in, I think, 2014 or 16. But it was, at that time when Oklahoma was experiencing a lot of big earthquakes, mostly due to fracking, that was scaring everyone, right? It was a kind of a crisis in national news, that all of these earthquakes in the state of Oklahoma. So the Oklahoma Geological Survey contacted us, say, hey, we want to have a program where we put Raspberry Shakes in schools. So they bought, I think, close to almost 100 Raspberry Shakes, and they've been able to get out most of those into the community, into libraries, into local schools, and it's been an incredibly successful program. If you go to raspberryshake.net/station view, you can explore around and see all of the stations there. And I think I'm not totally done talking, because I love to keep chatting and I love to take questions, but I want to kind of close with some strategies for STEM engagement, Raspberry Shake engagement, seismic engagement with communities everywhere. And those tips that I've learned are, one of the most important ones, of course, and this is, it goes back to the T3 Alliance philosophy as well, is community impact and purpose. And that is, just talking to the students, being able to have that feeling of, whoa, we did something really powerful. We did something really cool. And I did it with science. I can do cool stuff with science, with engineering, with math, with STEM. And that is what can be so powerful. And giving students some autonomy as well in that process, right? Like what I often do with students is I don't say, okay, we're going to do this and then this and then this and then this. I say, okay, let's learn this. Now I'll give you these resources. What do you want to do? What do we think we can do? And one thing I didn't mention in this whole entire presentation, but is a pretty critical point of most, of all the times I want to work with students and with STEM engagement programs, is to use the design thinking process. And I can share resources on that later, but it's the design thinking, if for those of you who haven't heard of it, are there's some steps. It's a problem-solving process, but it's a human-based problem-solving process that starts with empathize with who you're trying to help, right? Understand really well, define your problem. What is it you're actually trying to help? Ideate. What can you do? What is actually attainable, and what can you do to help? And then prototype and test. It's like, okay, do it, see how it works, keep going back. And it's an interchanging, waving process that's super powerful, and that's led to a lot of these incredible program opportunities for student engagement. Now, going down the bullet points, local experts. Now, this is one that we found so critical, especially for longevity and sustainability with projects, is find local experts, and not even experts, enthusiasts, right? People passionate about helping students and willing to, go volunteer, maybe being able to compensate them for some way, but that they, are available, that they want to help, they're passionate about helping students, that they're responsible, right? That's an important one, especially when working with students. But that can be, a lot of the things that I've done. I was kind of I could push people in different directions, but I needed help, right? There are a lot of things that alone is difficult, but bringing in the local hackathon organizer and, this seismologist might be able to help thinking about where things go. And it's also important for the students to see those local experts being passionate and helping them, because they see where they can go. Now, the third bullet, right? Competition/design challenges. Now, this is where I get back to thinking about like science fairs, right? Or like robotics competitions. We were talking about that, Raj. Those are often things that can give that extra little bit of motivation. And that's often something that, maybe is missing with these kind of projects and programs, is the enthusiasm can be there, but can kind of die off if you don't have something to perk it back up every time. And that goes into responsibility for upkeep, especially with seismograph like things where you install them and then they sit there and do something, right? When they break, or do people forget about them? How do we program upkeep? So where I said there is clubs, right? Is there a geology club? Is there a coding club at a high school that maybe can be their duty? And now this is a personal one that it doesn't have to be, but I always find that more Raspberry Pis is always better, right? Having Raspberry Pis available for students to learn to program on, to learn the basics of how to look at data and how to maybe program it through simple visual programming languages. Node-RED, for example, is one we use a lot in T3 Alliance and in Raspberry Shake, Raspberry Shake's educational curriculum. But not just setting up Raspberry Shakes to just sit there, right? It's setting them up to do something and be able to program and do stuff with the data. It's especially good to have Raspberry Pis, and those can be set up on walls to do display of data and all sorts of things. A few more just little tips that I have coming up is, in seismographs in schools programs, we often recommend, and we've seen lots of success when the schools decide to, or the teacher, whoever kind of is organizing the shake stuff there, is having at least 2 Raspberry Shakes. Because what that allows for is, it allows for one to be a dedicated seismograph, to go in a basement, to go, like you see in this photo on the edge, that she's posting it in she's plugging it in and turning it on in a very dusty, nobody ever goes in there, barely, IT room with direct, on the bottom floor with direct cement to the ground. Now that's a great place for a seismograph to be. But if you want to do projects and experiments and those kind of things, it's always great to have a secondary, lab bench device or Raspberry Shake that you can do all those experiments on. And that's when we've done projects and implementations with schools, we found that that's always been really successful. And I think I'm just going to click past because I'm not sure. I think, yep, that's what I have to share with you. So I forgot to put my thank you slide, but thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity, and I hope that I left you with a lot of questions and ideas. And I think I'm going to stop sharing my screen and just open it up for people to chat. Did I stop sharing my screen? I think I did.
Yeah, thanks, Gabriel. That was really good. Definitely lots of ideas and thoughts. If anyone has any questions or comments for Gabriel, feel free. Go ahead, Bill. You can unmute yourself.
All right, great. Sorry. Thank you, Gabriel, for the great talk. Your enthusiasm for the educational component is absolutely impressive and inspiring. My question is about something you said early on about an example of a early detection in California, in which the Raspberry Pi Raspberry Shake network put out a solution prior to the USGS, and you suggested that was because the USGS wanted to get it right or had some sort of obligation to get it right. So my question to you is, have you considered the obligation of your system to get it right, or is there any sort of any sort of thinking around that?
Yeah, so great question. Thanks, Bill. And I guess the answer to that is, of course, we don't want to give erroneous, solutions and post them to Twitter. But what we have found is we've almost never been wrong. And the system is, and I have to give a caveat to my answer that I don't actually know that much about how the system works, and I would refer you to Brandon, the CEO and kind of manager, if he was here. But I do know that those solutions, they only come out that fast when there's a huge density of Raspberry Shakes in that area. And I think we use SizeComp 3. Are familiar with that, but I think I'm fairly certain that's what our servers use. And they, if I think, and I apologize because I can't give you a definitive answer, but I think that how it's set up now is there has to be some level of certainty in our internal program for it to send out that automatic tweet. Thanks for the question, Bill.
Yep, thank you.
Thanks, Bill and Gabriel. Anyone else have a question they want to raise for Gabriel? Comments? Jennifer, go ahead.
Hi, yeah, thanks for your presentation. Wonderful. Been involved in a couple NSF grants myself, so similar track. My question had to do more with the longevity, because some of the obviously challenges is keeping that going. And I'm just curious, how are you have the curriculum? Yes, are you looking at standards? How are you putting them into the curriculum standards that are across the world that might be a little bit different, or what that looks like? So sorry, that's a big question.
Yep. No, that's a excellent question, because it's something that I've thought a lot about as I put up this curriculum and this this material for educators to use with the Raspberry Shake. And the reality is, we have not, as of yet, right? We definitely want to set up and give a whole big PDF of all of the different standards that this lesson goes into and this activity can fit into. But right now we haven't set up, and we haven't provided that yet. I mean, we've definitely looked through it, and of course a lot of using seismographs and understanding P waves and waves, that fits into a lot of curriculum worldwide. And it's something that we're kind of thinking about a revamp of a lot of our curricular materials early next year that will include, especially the NGSS, the United States science standards, next generation science standards. But right now, we also understand that we can't provide a whole curriculum, on our website. What we want to provide, and we maybe thought about that at the beginning, being we'll just give them a whole bunch of lesson plans that'll fall into curriculum. But the reality is, we want to provide more of ways that Raspberry Shake can fit in to existing curriculum, and provide much more activities and resources, but not try to say that we're curriculum when we're really not. I think that's important as well. Thank you, Jennifer. That was a great question.
Thanks for the answer.
Thanks. Anyone else have a question? They want to?
I had a quick question. Oh, sorry, Vaj, I just passed in front of you. This is Caroline Holden from GNS. Yeah, cool. Just had a question practically. So let's say my local school wants to join the network and have their own Raspberry Shake. What's the practical step for that? And do they belong to some kind of like school network right away? Do they get a discount on the instrument as well because it's all part of a school network? Or yeah, basically practically, how can they join?
Yeah, so thank you for the question, Caroline. And the basic answer to that, I think, is yeah, you join by purchasing some Raspberry Shakes and plugging them in and setting them up. There is an educational discount and an educational / personal use discount for Raspberry Shakes. A regular Raspberry Shake for institutional or research purposes costs $500, the Raspberry Shake 1D, but if it's for education or for personal use, then it's $375. So we try to offer that accessibility more to educators and teachers. And Caroline, to how do you join? I think, yeah, it's reaching out. Here, I'll share my email quickly in the chat so that if anyone has any more questions. But yeah, getting some devices. There is oftentimes a little bit of a process to actually connect the Raspberry Shakes to the internet when you're on an institutional server or a school server, just because oftentimes firewalls and things. So it's important to have a good relationship with the IT or system admin when you're doing that. But yeah, it's really just as simple as getting your hands on some shakes and plugging them in.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
I have a question and also maybe a comment for New Zealanders on board. So as you probably know, we are working through Quake Core, a number of our programs, and we are putting seismometers in schools. So one of the challenges I think we have, because of accessibility and low cost, individual schools can sign up. but equally there are a number of research consortiums also putting them in. So one of the challenges we're trying to address here is to get, without stopping anyone doing anything, because it's not our right to get some coordination across the various science programs. So we have set up through the various, an alliance of those interested in seismometers in schools, and we have a forward path with the work that Marion's doing, the work that we're doing in the Central North Island, there's work on the Chatham Islands. So there are about 5 or 6 which initially were somewhat separated programs coming together, but equally, so more of a heads up, if you're interested, we are trying to form an alliance here just to coordinate it. But equally, as you said, we can't stop any individual school or any entity just ordering and being part of the global network. So maybe, is there an opportunity, this is maybe a question back from the curriculum, is to work with local in-country partners to help, for you to help facilitate some of that coordination without being any barrier to individual groups?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Thanks for those comments. That's great to know. I think that, I mean, I would love to be a part of any coordination and any kind of help coordinate schools working together and networks per se. But I know that Raspberry Shake, probably would back off from being too involved in those programs as a company, right? Because they, what we've done, most of the times in the past is we can provide the equipment and give all of the support technically that we can. But when it comes to really being, the organization and that kind of thing, I think it comes down to the local organizers like Marion and like yourself. But I personally would love to be involved in helping, provide curriculum and provide ideas and brainstorm on all sorts of ideas that can happen.
Would you be willing for us to take your off-the-shelf curriculum and localize it with our local communities, but still keep your brand on it as a partner?
Oh, of course. And I think that was the original idea, right? Was to provide this base kind of resource that can be adapted and changed to however the end users want to use it. So of course, and I can even provide the if you want, the base Word documents or
Sure.
Google Docs that aren't in a PDF form to go through and mess around, of course. And if I can, I would like to share something that's really cool that I didn't get a chance to talk about, which is Raspberry Shake has created a kind of example proposal, an example seismographs in schools proposal that has here. Let me share the link with it in the chat. Copy link address, but it is a big long document that talks about all of the reasons. It gives a whole bunch of examples, talks about all of the different seismographs in schools programs. It even gives links to our curriculum as to why Raspberry Shakes are so great to have as a school seismograph, and that might be to use for of some of you. And we also have an editable version as well if you want to go in and explore. But I figured I just plug that in real quick. Sorry about that, John.
Thanks, Gabriel. Thanks for sharing that and for your enthusiasm to keep engaging and help maybe. And we've talked about this before. Help us brainstorm ideas in the future. And as David said, it would be good to get perhaps an alliance of the different programs here in New Zealand, and hopefully we'll still continue to engage with you in the different kind of aspects of seismology in school. I just want to I think Elle first, then Bill raised his hand.
Please.
Elle, please.
Hi, yeah, thanks very much for your talk. Yeah, I was just wondering, you mentioned, other people have mentioned the setup and you mentioned the support. I was wondering what support there is available. I know that you have a forum and then there's stuff written about paid support on your website. I tried to set one up and it didn't show up on your website. So I've clearly, but yeah, I was just wondering about that.
No. Yeah, so we do have free just tech support, right? We have, you can post on the forum, and usually we have a full-time tech support guy. His name is Giuseppe. He's from Italy, and he'll write on there. Usually he waits about 12 hours, so he lets the rest of the community help out first. But there's a full community support, and we have to have our tech support. And paid support, that is when it gets into more really advanced solutions, when you're trying to connect things to big servers. But any small thing like, hey, it's not showing up on the station view, that's probably something to do with the network that it's on. Maybe if you set it up or you set it up at home.
Yeah, I mean, this is unnecessary,
yeah, okay.
but it was in my house. It showed up on part of your website, but not on other parts of your website.
Oh, yeah, interesting.
And it said it was offline, but then the local view said that it was online. And then I had to unplug it and go to a meeting. So
That's okay. That's okay. Well, no, feel free to reach out to me at my email, gabriel@raspberryshake.org, or on the forum, and we can definitely help that out. But yeah, thanks for that question. It's definitely, it's there are things that happen every once in a while, but we make sure to be able to address them as soon as we can. Any other questions?
I think Bill raised his hand, or is it? Yeah.
Yeah, I did. That was a legitimate. I couldn't lower it previously. This is a continuation of David's conversation earlier about local partnering. So as I'm sure everyone's aware, right now there's a massive UNESCO effort in earth sciences, particularly to introduce the concept of traditional knowledge into a lot of what we do, and local knowledge and the knowledge of local communities. There's a recognition that through both engagement and co-creation of knowledge, it's a useful thing to do. New Zealand's very, very strong on this. So we have a Vision Motoranga, and we have Motoranga Maori, and we have a real opportunity to things like seismometers in schools or other sorts of monitoring efforts we have to bridge the gap and generate a lot of momentum by trying to understand where a Maori worldview and say a Western science worldview might overlap, and ways they could learn from each other. So I guess when we think about taking curricula and adapting it to our own New Zealand context, that's really something that's it's probably quite special to us, quite special to the New Zealand situation. There are other places that have the same special situation, but it's a different situation. So I guess it requires a lot of a local input and the local understanding of the cultures present here to do that.
Yeah, Bill, I can respond to that a little bit. I mean, that was definitely more to everyone than to me, but I can share that I've worked in Hawaii, right? But also in rural Alaskan villages with a lot of indigenous communities, and working curricula into local knowledge and is definitely something that I'm passionate about. So I would, if you want to CC me on any emails, I'd be happy to talk about. But it's definitely a really good path to go down, and it can be super powerful to the students especially.
Yeah. What we don't want to do is look like a whole bunch of rich scientists that are just moving into a community and using the geography of the community to our advantage.
Definitely. Great comments. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that comment, Bill. Really important to highlight that. Yeah, so thanks. Anyone else has a comment? We have a comment. We have around 2 minutes, so yeah. But yeah, so I just want to take the opportunity to thank everyone in the for attending, and probably hand it off to Raj to give a few words of thanks.
Thanks, Marian. Thanks, Gabriel. Thanks heaps for joining us. And it's quite exciting to see these projects happening in other parts of the world. And we are quite keen to kind of engage with schools and see other projects. And as David mentioned, so try to have some sort of alliance here. I'm sure we'll have great opportunities in the future to engage with you going forward and kind of tap into your knowledge, your experience, especially around sustainability. And one of the things we have realized very kind of last few months and seen through some of the literature is that, okay, you go and kind of put these sensors and have this engagement initially, as you mentioned, it's kind of really kind of go down, because when it comes to STEM projects, you are competing against many other hands-on attractive robotics kind of competitions. So I think personally, and for our project, I mean, this particular project we are doing, so we are quite keen to see how we can engage with other IoT devices to make it kind of more sustainable, and so we have more kind of sustainable integrated kind of ecosystem of activities going through, compete against other kind of very hands-on, more attractive things. I mean, so we have done some discussions around that. Probably we really kind of keen to engage, continue discussing that in the future. So thank you so much. And thank you so much for all of the community of practice partners and supporters. And so most probably, Marian, this will be our last webinar. Hopefully we'll engage with some of the new webinars in the
that's for 2020. We're not going away. We'll probably see each other for 2021.
Yeah,
but we'll definitely have other activities. Keep updated on our website as well. So
yeah, probably, as Marian mentioned, so we are kind of trying to focus more on the community engagement based on the activities we have done, learn from the community of practice. We are going to engage with the communities and run these few workshops, hopefully 3 to 4 workshops this year before the end of the year and early next year as well. So thank you very much for engaging with these seminars, and keep supporting us. So we'll probably see you all next year. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.